I'm a realtor. We're pretty much shut down as far as showing properties. And then I woke up this morning, and you were just a blessing. Actually, my neighbor next door, he's head of Duquesne Police, and he's a huge fan of yours. We're kind of clustered here because there's not very many Trump people here in the midst of all these Democrats, shall we say. I guess my question is, I am concerned about the economy, but it's so scary out there. But I was looking at some videos. These masks seem to be so helpful to us, to go out with a mask and gloves on. And I think they can even be handmade. I guess in Taiwan, that's their cure, in Korea. And so we can still do social distancing somewhat. I wanted your thoughts about that. The stimulus package, I wish the Congress would all go home and Nancy Pelosi. The idea of a business, I've been an entrepreneur for years. We had nightclubs and restaurants. Nobody's going to go for a grant that maybe doesn't need to be paid back. They're out there on a limb. They're going to die, and it's not going to work. And this whole stimulus thing, I mean, I get it in a way, but they could have just taken away taxes for a year or something. Those checks, they're not going to come out for God knows how long. The government can't do anything right. And that's what was so excellent about the president's campaign yesterday about these business people, these private entrepreneurs. They're going to be the ticket. So those are all my questions. And
all right, a few comments, Maggie. Stick with me. First of all, the Duquesne
I want to know
police
what
guy.
coffee you drink.
I drink Honor Bound coffee. Folgers, I'm almost done with it, and then it goes to Honor Bound. Talk to me about the police chief. Are people dropping off stuff at the precinct? Are they helping him?
Oh, well, he's at a university.
Oh,
he's at a university, and he's probably going to be listening on his podcast. So,
well, then I hope he should let everybody know what they need, because I think people want to help. I think they made a mistake by not just saying it was a grant. They're going to scare people away from it, and I think Phase 5 is going to have to convert everything into a grant. I'm going to take the loan at the Nixon Library. I got 40 employees. I'm going to keep them all on the payroll. I think as a realtor, you're going to be able to take the loan, and you will get qualified. There's no way for you to get screwed because you can't lay yourself off, right? The trouble.
Well, we can get unemployment, but honestly, I just had some closings. They allowed us. I don't know if I want to take more money out of the government. I mean, it's suffering. I've got savings still, and I just don't know how much I want to drain. So I'm different. I can hang on for a couple of months before I decide.
Did you hear Mark Calabria on the show today? The FHFA guy said, if you don't need relief, don't take it. I need it at the Nixon Library. I got to fire everybody. And I don't want to do that because we have no admissions, no revenue, no events. So I'm going to do it for 2 months, and hopefully we reopen and we're back to normal. And if we don't, I expect the government to forgive those 2 months, and then we'll make adjustments.
So my son is the manager at Cheesecake in Toronto, which scares me to death. They laid off 250 employees. 250. They're the largest cheesecake. I don't know how this company survives. I don't.
I have a good buddy who is the general counsel of a large restaurant chain, so I'm up to speed on the restaurants. It's a nightmare for that industry, more than hotels, more than anything, because people will go back to using hotels immediately, and they'll be there. Right? Marriott's not going to shut down their affiliates. The restaurants will not be there. It's going to be brutal. Hey, Maggie, thank you. Go Browns. Steelers fans, you. Lucia in Florida. Hi, Lucia.
Hi. Listen, the reason why I called was because I keep hearing that they're not finding now the masks, the ventilators, the gloves, the gowns, all that PE stuff, PPE stuff that we paid for, that the government went ahead and paid for and sent them over. So this is ridiculous. This reminds me of when we were sending all kinds of supplies and money to Puerto Rico, and it was corrupt. They had it there, and somehow or another, some of those people, I happen to know here in Florida, some of the Hispanic people. And it turns out they were getting phone calls over here from the Puerto Ricans, from their families, and they were saying, hey, we had heard and you told us that the news was saying that they were going to send us the stuff and it was going to be free and was going to be provided for our provisions. And these relatives were calling over here and they were saying, they're selling it to us. They're making us buy the water. They're making us buy the paper towels and the diapers
Well,
and
you
stuff.
know what's going to happen, Lucia? I think PR is a special case. There was a lot of corruption. Too many eyes are on this in too many places. That hospital that the president pointed out yesterday went from 10,000 masks to 300,000 masks. They're going to have auditors up the back alleys of that hospital. There are going to be auditors everywhere. I am not worried about overreaction at this point, and I do believe everything we're paying for is getting out, and I also think it's not going to be enough. Thank you, Lucia. Let me go to Mike in Fairfax. Rent Control Mike is back. Hey, Mike.
Right now, to tell you the truth, out in California, I'm visiting my parents.
Are you in your rent control apartment?
No, I'm in Monterey.
Okay. How are your folks doing?
They're doing fine. We're making sure because they're up there in age, and Monterey is actually the perfect county because there is not, you can walk around. There's not a lot of people, so the shutdown and everything you don't notice as much as when glad I got back up from LA a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad I'm out of there because it would have been. I've heard it's basically the mayor wants to put everybody, don't go walking out on the beach or anything. You don't have to worry about that up here.
Yep.
So, but
yep. I'm
anyway,
glad that go down to Cannery Row and read some Steinbeck for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was just out on actually Carmel Bay. I can get on my bike and go riding up Carmel Valley or down the Big Sur coast. It's perfect because I can get out and don't have to worry about seeing people. I can get out without being close to people, so it's not bad.
Good.
I got to tell you, I'm thinking about this like ahead of time. We're going to get through this, and so we're concentrating on other things now. But I got one thing to say to Xi and China. Show me the money. I think that China owes us $2 trillion. I think all of Europe, I don't care what they say, the world needs to, frankly, start pointing a finger at them. And I've heard that there are some, quote, international lawyers that are getting ready for lawsuits against the People's Republic. I don't know how far that's going to go, but basically the message needs to be sent, a total reevaluation of what we've been doing there the last couple of decades. I hate to say it, but I cannot believe, I am totally shocked. I talked to my dad because he's a retired radiologist, and I asked him, I never bothered to ask you, 90 or almost 100% of our medicine is coming out of that place. Who are the policymakers these last 30 years? I was always concerned about, for example, Apple. I don't like the fact that Tim Cook is producing stuff there. I said, why couldn't they pick, if they're going to pick some other country outside the United States, what about Korea or India or somewhere else? I would prefer them to be made here, but I think serious discussions need to be made also with him in the future, that it's time to start pulling out the big stuff that we actually need. We need our iPhones. We need that technology. But the medicine stuff, I just couldn't believe.
Yeah, Tom Cotton and Mike Gallagher have introduced a bill to stand up pharmaceutical manufacturing in the United States. That's going to pass. This is a horrible pandemic. Thank God it's not 1918. Because we are having revealed terrible weaknesses at a cost of tens of thousands of lives, but we can fix it now that we know it's there. And China's exposed to everybody. There is not anyone in the world who doesn't understand what happened here. I really don't. I don't see them ever escaping the shame of this.
No, this is going to be huge. And one of the things I'm glad about is I talk to my dad because we go back and forth when I'm watching the TV here. I'm asking, well, are most of these doctors, and he likes a whole bunch of them, including, Siegel from Fox News. He watches him, but also the people at the White House. He says these are very professional. He agrees with what they say. And I do get some detail. I have to, I'm not a medical person, but I have to ask, what's going on with some of these medicines, and could some of this have been prevented if we had known? He says really the only thing would have been had they done mitigation in China 2 months ahead of time. He says by the time it came here, it was going to happen. He says one of the things, don't look at all the statistics coming out of all these countries, because he says with these kind of things with pandemics, and he told me about other diseases that they followed. You know, as a doctor, you sometimes in medical school, you got to have the history of some of these pandemics, even though he was a radiologist. He says, well, basically what's going to happen is we're going to find out what was successful after the fact. It's not going to – right now we're kind of in real time, and we are going to be looking at cities that we're going to mitigate. But it's going to take after this first one is over. And then he explained to me that this COVID virus, there's actually 7 different types of it. And
Correct.
when they find the medication for this one, okay, sometimes you can have a mutation, and you're not going to know whether that mutation. Sometimes your vaccines you're producing now will work for that. Other times you're back to square one, and then sometimes when the summer comes, some of these will actually just frankly disappear. And so,
but some mutate. In 1918, that bug went through 12 passages, and it came out deadlier on the other end.
Absolutely, yeah. And he was just telling me that this is what you can expect through some of these. And also the positive test, they're getting better with the testing right now. He says, yeah, they're going to do that really quickly. He says, but one of the things that you have to realize too is just because you have a positive test, or initially 1 or 2 or even 3 positive tests for an individual, it doesn't. You have to do a series of them in order to declare the person essentially doesn't have the virus if they've been exposed. He says the best thing that's going to happen is you're going to find out people. They're going to have tests of people who had it, displayed no symptoms of it, and now have the antibodies for this virus. And then you're going to get a better. You're going to start
the antibody.
and
Mike, I got to move on, but the antibody test is so vital to opening up the country again, because then people who are safe can talk to people who are not yet infected or other people who are safe. That's phase 1, the antibody test. Thank you, my friend. Let me go to Dennis in Utah. Hi, Dennis.
Thank you
Dennis.
for having this. Thank you for having me on. There's not a whole lot of coffee drinkers here in Utah, but I can understand they're honor bound, and I hope you can promote that even here in Utah. Your Gatorade isn't one of your sponsors, is it?
No.
No. You don't want to kill the people.
I think Gatorade is the universal. It helps with the flu. I think that everybody likes it. There'll be an endless. If people don't know what to give to an EI or to a doctor, or to a police station or a fire station, they take a case of Gatorade. They'll be very welcome there.
Yeah, well, that's gonna comorbidities are my problem. My father's in assisted care living, like those people in Washington State,
and Maryland has one too. They're very dangerous.
And the assisted care living, I haven't been able to visit my dad since the 22nd of February when he had his 89th birthday.
It is very hard on the old people. That's why I like the president to talk, and why I'm outraged with the networks that don't carry him, because isolated older people love the president. They love watching something other than talking heads, and they follow him because he's repetitive. I know what he's doing. He's communicating with, it's sort of like TV for shut-ins, and good for him. Dennis, thank you. Todd in Iowa. Todd, go ahead.
Earlier on the radio show, but I never got to bring up my main idea, and I want you to steal this idea and put it in the Washington Post and take it to Chuck Todd's show. If they just let a little dry cleaner like me, or even you at the Nixon Library, file a claim on our business interruption insurance, I can go to my agent, I can show him my books, I'm down $20,000, he can write me a check. The feds repay the agent, there's auditors, there's adjusters, there's a system in place, and it would create 1 million jobs in the insurance industry. I would only get $1 that I had coming to me. No more, no less.
Todd, I put that in a column last week, and it didn't get any traction, but I'm going to go back to it, because if the government steps in as the business interruption insurer of last resort and declares this to be a business interruption event, you have exactly, I said the same thing. The whole insurance industry exists for this.
for this. And then I don't get any more or less right now. Hugh, I'm down $20,000 in the bank account. I'm going to use up my whole checkbook to keep the stores open because I can't close the retail stores because if the clothes don't come in, I have nothing. I have 2 people in the store cleaning. I used to have 20. 8 are on unemployment. They are paying them full benefits. That's great, though. I can afford to let them stay on unemployment and not starve them. These people have been with me 20 years in the dry cleaning business, almost unheard of. They're like family to me, but I have nothing to. I can't claim. I can get an SBA loan like we talked on air. Maybe they forgive it. Maybe they don't. A big place like the Nixon Society or a big corporation, a $50,000-$100,000 swing maybe isn't the end of the world, but I can't borrow $50,000 and not have it forgiven in the future and never.
Yeah, I think you made a good point today, and I'm going to go back to it again and again. They've got to make clear the forgiveness conditions. The one thing that's got me worried, let's say I've got an employee who doesn't do any work at home, 0. I don't think that's going to happen with my 40. But if they just sit there and do nothing, and I'm paying them, can I fire them and not lose the 39 who are working? You know,
That's right. That's
they
right.
need to. Eugene Scalia is on tomorrow, Secretary of Labor. I'm going to cover this with him. Make sure you listen, Todd. Thank you. Call back. Greg in Indianapolis. Hello, Greg.
I really don't have any questions or comments other than to just thank you for playing the role of an influencer and kind of a thought leader and a person who conveys optimism oftentimes amidst all this chaos.
You know, there are other people who are doing it, like Tim Alberta, but more people on broadcast have to figure out their job is to be a cheerleader right now.
Yep. Scott Adams is doing a pretty good job of the same thing in his realm. And I just want to say a couple of other things. One is I would buy a shite ton of those what do you call it, beat the bug bonds if they were to ever arise. And secondly, I was Andrew Del Rey's roommate in the early 1990s. So every time I hear you talk about him, it just kind of tugs close at my heart.
I'm not going to hold that against you, even though he's a dear friend. That must have been exhausting.
Yeah. He's a great guy.
I was in a Bible study with him for 20 years. He's a great guy.
I've heard you say that. Yeah. So anyway, man, for now, I'll just thank you for what you do and ask that you keep doing it for the next few months to get us through this stuff. So
I'm not going to change, Greg. Thank you. Call during the show. Bonnie, Riverview, Florida. Hi, Bonnie.
Hugh, I just wanted to call and tell you, I don't know what we would do without your voice.
Well, there are a lot of people out there.
I always listened to Bill Bennett for years. And when you took over, what a blessing. What a blessing to have, of all people. I know why he chose you. Because I don't know what I look forward to every morning at 6 a.m. to wake up and hear your voice.
Oh, Bonnie, you're a sweetheart.
Well,
Thank you.
You're just, I tell you, it's an old saying down here in the South, and I am one of the very few left that's a native of Florida that goes back to the 1800s, my family.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, I'm a real cracker.
You know, they got a name for that. My sister-in-law lives in Key West.
My great-grandfather goes back to the 1700s here, my great-grandfather. So let me tell you something. You're talking to a real native.
Yes, I am.
But I just want to thank you so much.
What's the old saying in the South?
The old saying in the South, you're cut from good cloth. Good.
I will take that. I will use that, cut from good cloth. And to you, Bonnie, thank you, my friend.
Old Seamstress come up with that years and years and years ago, way before I was ever born.
But now you are socially distancing. You're staying safe?
Huh?
Are you keeping apart from people and staying safe?
Oh, yes. I live alone. I have had 2 husbands I've buried. Just died of natural causes.
I was going to say, I hope they were.
I'm 72 years old, and I don't look like an old person. People just absolutely can't believe it. But anyway, I just wanted to call and let you know just how much you mean to us down here, us old ladies.
Well, you're not an old lady, but I'm glad you're a listener, and just keep listening, Bonnie, and help us spread the word.
You're honest, you're a Christian, and you speak the truth, and it's so good to hear because, Hugh, I can't watch TV hardly anymore. I can't. I have to watch old reruns.
You and I are in the same boat. I don't watch news. I only read news.
I'll tell you, when I watch Meet the Press, it's when you're on there. That's the only time that I watch it. I'm just being honest.
That's okay.
When I know you're
I'm glad.
To be a guest on there. Huh?
I'm glad you watch when I'm on. I understand news fatigue. I think the business has to change. Fox News has to change. MSNBC has to change. CNN has to change. At least right now, they have to change. People need hope, not argument.
Well, I want to tell you something that happened down here over the weekend. Well, it started Friday. All the evangelists, Christians, a lot of them, got out around the Walmarts. Some of them had their Bibles in their hand, and they were praying.
Well, good. People coming and going need that.
Yes, they're outside the Walmart stores and several other businesses, but they were out there, just Christian people. Several of them have just been, they all stayed far apart, but that was so comforting to walk into I go to the Walmart neighborhood market, and I go once every 9 days. That's how
good for
disciplined I am.
Good for you. I'm not that. I'm about once every 4 days, but I got to figure it out. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt's on the other coast, and so I'm going to be down to the almonds here.
Huh?
I'm going to be down to the almonds pretty soon.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's typical of guys.
Yes,
they
it
wait
is.
Till they're completely running out.
Yeah, we're not good planners.
I know. That's so funny, but you're just so down to earth, and you just don't know. There's only one other person that I really have listened to a long time, and if I would have known about you years ago, was Rush Limbaugh. And I tell you, I heard him the other day, last Friday, and it upset me real bad. He's really been going through. They had to stop his treatment.
I didn't know that. My prayers are with him. He's always been nice to me.
Oh yes, I pray so hard for him. They had to stop his treatment. He didn't get to be on his show all last week. They're starting another treatment now. He's got
Good.
the rest of it.
If anyone can kick this, it's Rush Limbaugh. Man is indestructible. So prayers for him.
He's won. I've listened to him since 1988.
You are the original. Remember back in the Rush to Freedom tour that he did and all that good stuff? He's a great American.
He is. He's a good man. And I'll tell you something. You know, I love his saying when he comes on. He says, I am Rush Limbaugh. This is Rush Limbaugh on loan from God.
With talent on loan from God.
Oh, yep. Yeah, with talent on loan from God. That is my that, and then I like yours. You're saying the one about what is it? I can't believe.
Well, I got a few. Morning Glory. I've got
Morning Glory, Evening Grace, right?
Evening Grace. Yep. Hey, Bonnie, thank you. God bless. I got to get to Tom in Marin County, who's been so patient. Hello, Tom.
Hewitt.
Hello, Tom.
Want to go ahead and bless Bonnie in Florida. We need a little bit more sageness and wisdom like that.
Wasn't she great?
She was wonderful. Okay, now with the self-aggrandizement part of the program's over, I got a couple of things I want to talk to you about. Yeah, sorry, but I mean, I got two things that are really bugging me, and I figure we're not on the air, so you can actually, it's like we're in camera now, so you can tell me the truth.
Yep.
All right. My first question was with respect to your interview with the Ohio AG this morning, and he came out and said, Yabba Dabba Doo guy from the FDA was standing in the way of it. And you said, well, we shouldn't go ahead and do anything about that guy. And my question is why shouldn't he just be removed? We're in exigent circumstances here, correct? Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay, and that the Treasury door has been flung open. So why wouldn't we go ahead and at least remove this guy temporarily, and after the dust settles, then we can go ahead and reassess the procedure. But this guy should
I have a theory. I'll tell you my theory. My theory is that FDA is overwhelmed by NDAs, new drug applications, and that applies to new technologies. So they have promoted a bunch of people above their rank and told them they're above their pay grade. There are GS-12s who are operating at SES level. That's government speak for you've got
general service
career. Yeah, and so he looked at this application and or she and said, "Oh dear, I don't know what to do. I'll give him 10,000." Now that's an irrational decision. Either it's nothing or it's full throttle to the metal. Yeah, but a bureaucratic cover your you know what response is, "I'll give him 10,000," and
I got you,
then
but we're gonna give you latitude on that. I'd rather you make the mistake under doing what is best overall than sitting there and just saying no. Okay.
Agree. And so my theory of that individual is everyone's going to get one strike, and then you're 2 strikes and you're out. And so if you learn that don't touch the electric fence, get the hell out of the way, unless there's a good reason not to get the hell out of the way. And yell fire, by the way, if someone's selling us soap and saying that it's antibiotics, we need the FDA to say no, no, no. But if it works or maybe works, we need them to say yes, yes, yes. And we're going to cull the herd of the no, no, no people in a hurry. But everyone gets one strike. That's my theory, Tom.
Okay. My second question, and I really, this is not to be overly critical of you because it's not. And on the margins, I think you are doing a yeoman's work with some great ideas. But I really have to know, do you have some sort of fiduciary relationship with NBC? I saw Chuck Todd. I deliberately watched Chuck Todd yesterday because you were going to go ahead and be on, and I heard him ask the former vice president the question of whether or not President Trump had blood on his hands. Look, this man is infuriating. If he at least came out and said, "Hey, look, I'm not Tim Russert. I'm David Gregory," I could go ahead and accept that, all right? But he's using the imprimatur of Meet the Press, that he's fair, impartial, and unbiased, to go ahead and be the vanguard of the DNC. And I know we're trying to put politics aside, but this man is not an honest broker, and you keep going on his show.
All right, now let me tell you what I thought of that question. I saw the blowback, obviously. He posed it in the alternative, which is, does he have blood on his hands, or is that too harsh? And the vice president said that's too harsh. Number one, that helps Trump. Because the harshest possible question was asked, and the nominee of the Democratic Party demurred. Number two, I have myself botched questions. I was on the stage with Ben Carson in the presidential debate, and I asked him, I meant to say, do you have what it takes to order the death of thousands if you need to? And it came out the wrong way. I got booed by the crowd. So I botched questions. You know, I know that.
You look, your record, whether you like it or not, is on the record, and so is Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd has a pedigree, and he also has a record of doing this stuff, and that's fine. I mean, if he just came out and said, "I'm Rachel Maddow as the male," I'd go ahead and occasionally tune into a show because I know where he's coming from.
But Tom, he's not. He's actually a hotline guy. Chuck is. People, I understand the MSNBC brand has broken his brand a little bit as straight shooter. I hear you, but he's a hotline guy. He knows more about this business than anybody else, including Jake Tapper, and I even say Britt Hume. He just does. And
that's great. Well, then go ahead and put him as a political commentator. I don't want him. Look. I don't like Chuck Todd. I
kind of got that impression.
Well,
I do.
You know what? It's not whether I like him personally or not. It's his veracity, and just like a jailhouse witness will tell you anything you want to hear. Chuck Todd is not a broker of the truth. Yet he goes ahead and hides into that. And if we got him on the witness,
and we disagree. I think he is. But you know what? I'm glad a lot of people have exactly your concern, and you know how to lay it out detective style. And detective style, there is evidence to the contrary, which you got to consider.
Not on the air.
Yeah, there is. I am the evidence to the contrary. Chuck puts me on. The MSNBC people do not want me on.
Okay. All right. Well, then, look, I have to go ahead and tell you, it's gotten to the point now where if it's Thursday at 5 a.m. out here in San Francisco, I don't listen to your show. I got the classical music station's wonderful from 05 to 05:30. I'm just letting you know, as somebody who's trying to be fair and try to.
And Tom, let me tell you what we actually did deep dive research on every single personality on the show.
Okay.
Chuck scores. He's not the. You would be surprised who the most popular recurring guest is. Do you want to know? Sonny Bunch.
Oh,
Sonny
okay.
Bunch.
All right. Well, okay. He's great.
He's great. And so I want to give him a podcast. Chuck is in the mean score of about 75% is Sonny, 70% is Chuck, and most of the guests, some people, I'm not going to tell you who, score below 60, and I'm making adjustments accordingly.
Is that why we no longer hear Miss Rule anymore?
I have no comment.
Okay, that's fine. One last thing. We're about a game and a half behind New York. They've just run the numbers in terms of the amount of direct flights that came in from China directly into San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Los Angeles, and the 22 flights that came in directly from Wuhan. And so out here in the Bay Area, we figure it's going to hit this month. Going forward, we expect a huge spike in.
Great, you guys are screwed. When I heard Burks on Meet the Press yesterday said, "You're all screwed."
On the good side, no one's getting arrested. You got to really earn it in Oakland to go ahead and get arrested right now, or any place else within the.
Yeah, but how long? This is a question for you. How long until the cartels realize that they've got?
They already have. They already have. Look, those guys. I got to tell you, we should go ahead and go to business. Put a business model on the Zeta and the Sinaloa cartels, because these guys talk about getting rid of red tape. These guys are going to flood the zone with money. They're getting their drugs in. The thing we're worried about now is if the food stores closes, because then that's the ticket for civil unrest. If we can't keep that supply chain, that one lifeline going, that's the only thing standing between us and the mob. That's it.
First time in my life that I have regretted not being a gun guy. First time I've ever worried, because civil unrest is. I asked the governor of Maryland on the air last week. Said,
Hogan.
Yep, possibility.
Yes, it's and look, we have some, with the Black Bloc and all the anarchist stuff that we've had out here. We're pretty well schooled in their tactics, and they've been infiltrated. But those are just that would just be the vanguard. The people you're worried about are, the lower rung citizens who are saying, I can't get anything to eat, or I'm worried about feeding my kids Tuesday, and what they're going to go ahead and do to, what they're going to do to liquor stores or gas stations or stuff like that, right?
Yep. Well, call me back on air about that, because I'm glad to hear. I figured law enforcement was gearing up for this. I'm glad you're aware, but be safe, and thanks for doing everything you do.
Nice talking to you, Mr. Hewitt. Go.
Call me Hugh, Tom. I'm calling you that, not detective. You're a regular now. You're like Ione. Be well. Thank you all for listening. That ends. The doctor is no longer in. I'll be back tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.